Good morning and welcome to Purely OCD. I'm Lauren Rosen. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and just as a reminder, this is not a replacement for therapy, nor is it intended as a replacement for therapy. It's for educational purposes only. And we have two special guests with us today. So it used to be the Scottish anxiety lady. I think her new handle is the Anxiety Whisperer. That's Emma. And then there's Lisa, who's simply anxious. That's her handle. Good evening. Good to see you all. Welcome. And for those of you who are, except Kelley first, then maybe we can intro. Hello.
Hello.
Good day.
Good day.
So I think Lisa is ready to go, but I figured maybe we'd do a little announcement since we really don't usually have guests on here. So
Oh yeah. So the announcement is we how do I report people? Lauren? Hold on.
I'm doing it right now.
Okay, I reported.
Oh, cool. And then I'm just going to remove. That's cool. Though generally speaking, I've got a new plan to just ignore people who are not being kind on these. That's just my new plan.
Okay, good. I have another plan.
Oh, you have another plan. Cool.
Well, a little more aggressive and probably the problem, but anyways.
I like it.
So
welcome to Purely OCD.
Yeah, welcome.
Yes, welcome. Welcome to Purely OCD. We have two guests today who are all the way from the other side of the pond.
Mm-hmm.
So Emma, the Anxiety Whisperer, and Lisa, the Simply Anxious, not the Simply Anxious. And we're going to be chatting with them, and I'm going to pose a topic to the four of us to discuss. And we have, I think, some questions. Feel free to add questions into the question mark box if you have them, and you'll know the topic here shortly and try to keep it on topic. So without further ado, I'm going to invite our guests to join, except hopefully that worked. TBD.
We'll see.
Hello.
Hi.
We've got
Hello.
we've got the four of us now. That's fantastic.
Hey.
How are you?
Hi, ladies.
Good. Really good. Thank you, ladies. How are you guys doing?
Doing
Good.
Fantastic. Yep.
Good.
You look amazing as always.
Oh, you're so sweet. I feel
Yeah.
like I need to lower my camera so I'm at the same height as Kelley. It's bothering me. I'm just going to do that real quick. That's technical information.
I'm also wearing purple, and for everyone's, fun fact, I usually wear black only.
I'm in
So-
black.
Exclusively.
I'm definitely making things spicy today with you gals.
You are.
Purple.
You're keeping. I've got
Well,
some
thank you.
purple cabbage in behind me.
Nice.
I'm just
Well,
trying
my
to-
whippets, I fed them on boiled liver, so they're a bit drunk on food. Which is good.
So they're nice
Good.
and quiet.
That's
Yeah.
wonderful. They're so cute.
They are so cute.
So, yeah, go ahead, Lauren.
I was just going to say that one of the things that Kelley and I briefly talked about beforehand was maybe discussing OCD and anxiety disorders and maybe the similarities and any differences we may see. We've got, a good mix of lived experience and psychological training here. So I feel like we could probably, talk a fair amount about that.
Yeah. Sounds
Yeah.
good. Sounds good. Where are we starting?
Well, why don't we start with
Good question.
introduce it, like, because we kind of introduced you, but I want, anything that you feel it's important
Yeah.
to introduce in yourselves. I think that'd be a great place to start.
Okay,
Off
I'll
you go, Lisa.
first. All right. So I'm the only one here who isn't qualified. I'm not a professional mental health person in any way, shape or form. What I am is someone who suffered with anxiety and panic for 20 years. A lot of those years I suffered in silence, and then I got sick of suffering in silence and I started to raise awareness. I did that for, it'll be 10 years now. So I've got a lot of experience in sort of networking within the mental health community, meeting people from all walks of life, learning the facts, not the myths, and not the stigma myths, and not what the anxious mind tells you either. So yeah, I think I'm in a good sort of place in my life now. I've recovered from my anxiety disorder. I'm currently doing a lot on self-esteem. So I'm really grateful actually for the trolling, because that's helped me face another challenge and get through it. So that's me in a nutshell.
And one thing that Lisa won't tell you about is the fact that she's got a very lovely medal, don't you?
A medal?
I got an honours from the Queen.
No big deal.
Yeah, it's like being knighted. Okay.
Like
what?
Dame Lisa. Okay, whatever.
Raising
It's fine.
awareness. No,
what
for
is
the work I did in raising awareness, voluntary work,
Wow.
just to try and get mental health in parity with physical health. And you know, we're all human beings. We've got a brain and an emotional, not emotional, and a nervous system, and society and life wears the shit out of it. So we get ill.
Yeah.
And we've had I had no sort of knowledge about how to look after my mental health. I think a lot of people don't until you actually start suffering. So I wanted to try and change that and get preventative measures in place and make employers more sort of mental health friendly and supportive. And I got a medal. So thanks for that, Em.
That's amazing.
Well,
I'm so glad you
congratulations.
shared that, Emma.
Sometimes it's difficult to blow your own trumpet, so I'll always give it a toot for you.
Yeah, toot all you can.
Toot away.
I haven't had my trumpet blown for years.
Nothing like a good trumpet blow.
So thank you.
Oh my God.
Thank
That's
you.
Awesome. And can I just say too that, you know, it's yes, you're the only one who doesn't have maybe the you know, formal education experience, and lived experience is a hugely important component of this discussion. Yeah. Right? Like it informs it so much. And so you bring a really important vantage point to the table.
Thank you.
Definitely. We've just been asked, where is the conversation going? And I think probably I'll just do a really quick sort of background on me. That's all right. No, it's not.
No, sorry.
It's not. I'm just going to give my name is Emma Garrick, and I work and live and play in Scotland, and I am a psychotherapist, and I have lived experience with various forms of anxiety, but also OCD. So I work with people who have particularly stubborn forms of anxiety, and I help them using lots and lots of different therapies. I'm kind of a holistic practitioner. And we all met because we have this overlap into this world of OCD. And we just all pulled together, didn't we, at some point? And that's how we all know each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
So today's topic is anxiety disorders and how they look like or how they are common with OCD. Is that what we're thinking?
Yeah, and how they dovetail into one another, similarities, differences between them from both. Because I think I'm not speaking out of turn by saying all four of us have lived experience with both OCD and anxiety disorders, arguably part of the same category. And then also, of course, we have the vantage point of the clinical experience too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So with that being said, how about we start with Emma? So you said that you work with people who have particularly stubborn types of OCD and anxiety. Can you tell us what that means, or like what's the crossover that you commonly see that makes it like that and makes it stubborn?
A lot of the times, sorry, I'm getting a lot of messages. So if I'm going like this, it's just because I'm removing some messages from my phone.
Okay.
A lot of the time, what I see is people who have struggled with anxiety throughout their life, and maybe they have pushed it away and for some reason it has gone away, or maybe at some point they've gone on medication and this has resurfaced for some reason or another at some point further down the line. But the actual work that we need to do to recover has not actually happened yet, because the medication has kind of almost had too good of an effect of putting the symptoms on the back burner.
Mm-hmm.
So I see that quite a lot. The other side of this, for people that are having their stubborn anxiety, is that we just get very, very busy at times in our life. And sometimes we don't stop. And sometimes it's not until we are put on our knees that we stop and we actually start to take a look at ourselves and we start to think, well, actually, I've been flying by the seat of my pants for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And now's the time to actually take a good look at myself and do something about this. This has been a problem. And I've had people who have had those moments of, oh my God, this is what life without anxiety actually can be like.
What is that like? Because I live with anxiety. I feel like mine's just managed and not gone.
Can I just say, can I just jump in there, Em? Because I did a post on this from my own experience, that I think when we try to recover or overcome our anxiety or our anxiety disorder, we kind of try and fit it in with everything else going on in life. And life is so busy. It's like everything else takes priority and you try and fit. You know, you maybe have your one session a month or every 2 weeks with a therapist, and you try and fit your recovery into that. Sorry, they woke up. And I got to a stage where I thought, okay, I keep going round in circles here. I keep patching myself up. And then the minute I'm sort of patched, I go straight back into the environment that impacted my anxiety or triggered it, until I became ill again. And then I follow the same pattern. And I'm not saying everyone does this, but I got to the stage where I thought, I can't continue with my career, because my career is actually keeping me in this cycle. Because it was so sort of demanding and various other things. And so when I took myself out of that and focused on my recovery, it was a totally different ball game, because I didn't have to. Now I don't know what the answer is, because life is in your face, you know, and jobs are in your face and everything else is in your face. But you really do need time and space to be able to recover properly, I believe. Otherwise you do sort of fall risk of just patching yourself up, and like I did. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I thought.
I don't think there's any right or wrong here, but I think that you are making some really good points.
Yeah, and going back to Kelley, when you said, well, what is that life without anxiety like? I have been riddled with anxiety at times in my life, to the point where I wasn't functioning as a human being. And I had when I had my first child, that was one of those moments that I will never forget. But I have also had moments in my life where I have completely just forgotten what it's like to wake up in the morning with that dread that you feel in your stomach, and that morning nausea, and walking through your day as if you are plugged into the mains electricity sockets.
Ooh, good analogy.
Yeah. It is a very calm and peaceful place that I wanted to visit more.
I guess to sort of follow up on Kelley's question about it, because I think it's an important one. I think that experience that you're talking about, where you wake up and you think, oh, this is such a different experience than the one I've had before, where I do feel like I'm plugged into an electricity socket.
Which we will now use forever.
Forever.
And we will, we're coining your term there.
Yep.
Don't worry.
Emma Garrick, 2022. But I think that that's really a side effect of recovery that comes and goes. Because I have had plenty of days in my own recovery, and I see this for my clients all the time, where you feel that current going through your veins, and you want to do all of the behaviors that have historically been your go-tos. And recovery, I think, is in, yes, it's beautiful to have those moments of peace, do not get me wrong, but I think it's oftentimes in the cultivating of those moments and the choice really to prioritize values. And I think that actually goes to what you were saying, Lisa, is like at a certain point in recovery, the values have to take the front seat.
Totally.
Otherwise you'll keep going back.
And I think there's huge, sorry, Lisa, carry on.
No, go on.
No, I was going to say that I was talking about this today in a session, and we touched on the subject of, the amount of grieving that you do when you're actually recovering during your journey with anxiety. And actually the grieving is part of you going back into those values and saying, actually, what had been getting done no longer, actually, I've recognized that probably needs to be addressed, or there needs to be a shift of some description happening there. And with that, we then get that release of, oh, right, okay, let's climb another bit of this mountain.
All I was going to say is, with my recovery, I still get anxious, but I no longer get triggered by getting anxious, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, you manage it, right?
Yeah, and so I don't trigger anxiety unnecessarily. So what I mean by that is, I don't trigger it because I don't want it to be here. I don't want it to come, or I'm scared it'll come. I don't have that. But I still get, especially like visiting mum, I always feel anxious before I visit my mum, and then after. But that's just an emotion that I'm feeling because of the situation that I'm in. So I was talking to Emma about it earlier, and it's like Emma said, when you have a broken arm, you still have an arm when it's healed. It's like you still have a nervous system, and part of that nervous system is anxiety comes. It just comes when it's meant to. You're not triggering it, and that's how it feels for me. I'm not saying that, something may happen and it comes up again, but it's losing that fear for me, and I did a lot of work in that.
Well, right, because you suffer with panic, right? Which is kind of that's the most important thing to talk about when it comes to being okay with anxiety being there. Because if you get scared that anxiety's there, that's a surefire way to get a panic attack, I can tell you.
I think it was, for me, it was GAD that crippled me. So the panic attacks, they weren't pleasant, they weren't great. But the GAD, that lingering sense of dread and doom. That is what, and someone put, what happens if you've got kids? Well, that was it. That's why I patched and patched and patched, because I was a single mum. So I had to keep going.
There's no space
to actually take my... But you can. It's just, it is a lot to do with unlearning. For me, it was.
Yeah. Well, being, and so much more accepting of the experience, right? It's so counterintuitive, though.
But I can't comment on OCD because I've never experienced it.
Well, let's dive in a little bit more about how, the way Lauren and I talk about it and think about it is that anxiety is kind of on this continuum, right? We treat it very similar, GAD. And when you're saying GAD, for those of you who don't know the acronym, it's generalized anxiety disorder. So a person is going to have, let's just for common verbiage say like obsessions around real life stuff that's going on, like will my kid get into college, am I going to pass my exams, will this guy like me or not like me, right? It's like it's rumination over stuff that's really happening, whereas OCD, it's very removed in a lot of ways, right? Is like what if in my sleep I'm walking and I stab my family? Is like there's a jump in content a bit. I don't know if you guys want to expand more on that, but that's.
I'm good with that explanation. I just it's very themed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I will say that it gets blurry, as I think you would all agree as well. Because,
Sure.
And I think most people with OCD also experience generalized anxiety disorder to some greater or lesser extent. Not all, but the vast majority will get caught up in that.
I think from what you three said there, when I first started experiencing anxiety, and I had it chronically for like 8 months. I had it for like 20 years, but the first experience of it, I did worry that it was going to overcome me and I'd end up stabbing everyone or me. Yeah. So when I went to live with my parents, I begged my mum and dad to hide all the knives in the house. So that was obviously OCD, a symptom of OCD. But then my anxiety went on to, that kind of faded, and it was more anticipatory rather than, and I didn't know what was going to happen, but I knew it. I thought it was something terrible.
So I guess I'm curious too, just from a lived experience perspective, I think we put things in these boxes, right? Like, and you can kind of like look back at your experience and say, okay, well, that would probably be considered OCD and that would be generalized anxiety disorder. However, I'm curious about your experience of it. Did you experience that as something different, or was it sort of a continuation with a different topic? I love it when you finish my sentences.
I had no idea it was OCD until actually I started talking to Emma about me and my experience. Do you remember, Emma? And I said, well, maybe I had OCD, because I noticed that when my anxiety would peak, the GAD would be like bad. I'd think about suicide a lot. Or I'd just become focused on my feelings a lot. And as it started to wear off, I would walk through a supermarket, and if I read something half, I'd have to go back and read the whole thing. But when my anxiety levels, so I didn't do anything different than I would have to overcome my anxiety. I just did it all without putting that as, oh, I've got OCD now.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So it's only now that I'm actually thinking, oh, maybe I did have OCD. But I then see it, and I'm really sorry if this is not correct, was it a symptom of the anxiety I was experiencing?
We'll never know, but
no.
I think that proves our point of like, there isn't a box to put anybody in. And it's really common to see people who suffer with generalized anxiety disorder with the OCD. It is a continuum. It's like, here they are, here's generalized anxiety, here's OCD, but like Lauren said, there's somewhere in between where it gets muddy too.
It seeps into each other.
And panic is somewhere in there, right? Health anxiety is in there as well.
Phobias.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's rare to see someone, right, and social anxiety. It's rare to see someone come in and just be, I have one obsession. That's the only thing I'm worried about in life. The end. I mean, they might be hyper-focused on it being that way, but if we take a big step back, there's usually lots of variations of their anxiety.
Yeah.
Because I've never had phobias apart from I don't like walking over. I wouldn't like walking near a cliff or over a bridge. And I remember going to California. I went.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a phobia at all.
I went to the Hoover Dam, and I looked over, and I said, "We got to go," because I thought I was going to jump.
Yeah. Which even falls into like, this is where it gets really messy, because is that a phobia? Is that OCD? Is that anxiety?
Yeah, it's like it starts to really gets really messy.
A box in a box in a box.
Somebody just said that sounds sensible.
Yeah, see?
So I just think it's human beings. I don't think we're damaged. I think we react to the pressures in life and things that happen to us or society in different ways, and this is how the nervous system and the brain reacts.
I think that actually,
I'm not qualified.
You what do you mean you're not qualified?
No, because I mean Emma's had OCD and she was diagnosed with it, which is.
But I think our point is that we're not putting anyone in boxes today. It's like a crazy Russian doll situation after a while, you know.
It just keeps going.
It just keeps going. I think bringing up, and I would love to hear your thoughts on this, maybe Emma as well. Somebody had asked if it's possible to change your brain from a neurotypical brain or a neurodivergent brain to a neurotypical brain. And
what a question.
I know. And I have thoughts on it. I'm sure Kelley and Lisa and everyone, but wanting to, hear a little bit more from you. And I think it kind of speaks to this larger topic of, and I guess my Instagram handle probably gives it away, that the obsessive mind. I think I have a clear bias here, but I'd be curious to know what your thoughts are.
Initially, well, what are we talking about when we're talking about neurodivergence? We're talking about something that we're typically calling that's falling outside of what we would horribly call normal, regular, more common.
How boring.
Gross.
And actually,
man-made.
And we've had a comment already in the saying it's okay to be neurodivergent, and absolutely, it's absolutely okay to be neurodivergent. I am definitely neurodivergent.
I am divergence.
I am.
We should start a campaign. Okay.
And can we influence that? 100%. Do we want to? Yes, when it's distressing for us in our neurodivergence, I think.
I asked the question, who decided what was normal?
I think when people start to get, like when you were saying, Lisa, is like when you hit rock bottom is, I think, when it starts to be like, oh, there's an issue, right? Because a lot of people have intrusive thoughts. A lot of people, the Whippets have a lot to say about this topic.
They're very vocal about this.
Are they?
They're having a Whippet wrestle.
I missed that. I totally missed that.
Oh my gosh. A Whippet wrestle.
That's my brain. That's what my brain sounds like. I don't even know what I was talking about.
That's what my brain sounded like on Friday too.
Did it? I think that was the Wednesday for me.
No, that was Friday and Saturday brain sound for me, definitely.
Ooh, it's a good sound.
Yeah.
It was chewing over some stuff, definitely.
They sound like gremlins.
They do. But cute little gremlins. Well, the gremlins are cute.
Yeah, that's true.
But the point being is that we all have these intrusive thoughts, right? Like actually research shows everyone has intrusive thoughts, but it becomes a problem or divergent. Believe me, I don't want to subscribe, excuse me. It's still Monday. subscribe to this idea that there's normal versus not normal,
Yeah.
but you know, there certainly is a line where people, you know, it gets in the way of their daily functioning. So
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just to add in a little bit more about neurodivergence, I'm definitely I have ADHD, and you know, there's I see a lot of fear sometimes in the faces of some people when you come to talk about things like OCD and ADHD and you know, other classifications, let's just call them that, but they're really only names for clusters of symptoms in my own mind. It's just a way, an umbrella that helps us classify things in my mind now.
I think there's like a question that I've heard being asked. Are hypersensitive people or highly sensitive people, or is ADHD just highly sensitive people?
or is anxiety just highly sensitive people?
Yeah.
And I think somebody asked, what is neurodivergent? I think that the idea is that there is some average that we might call typical for what's going on neurologically. And so, but to the discussion going on here, nobody fits that average because everyone is their own individual. But there are some people who are maybe closer to that quote unquote typical brain. And I think that, oh no, I lost my train. It went away.
It's all right.
No.
I know why it went away.
Yeah. Where was I? What did I just say, guys?
You said about neurodivergence and
neurotypicals and oh, I was going to say that to your point, Emma, and because I think maybe as a continuation, I still consider myself to be neurodivergent, even though I'm very much living in recovery. And it's because of the way my mind functions. Now I can watch it and I can navigate it in a way that supports my life better, but I have to understand the way that my mind works in order that it doesn't interfere with my ability to live a very big, full life.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that once you're aware of the you know, the playground that you've got in your own head and you know how to navigate it, it doesn't, you can navigate it differently is what I would say. You find different ways to climb over some of the challenges that you will face. And so
definitely
a lot of stress going on, a bit of disclosure here, a lot of stress going on behind the scenes at headquarters in Scotland at the moment. Friday, my head was jumping around. Saturday, the same. Intrusive thoughts were just coming. And, you know, I work with this. I've been here, I've been on my knees before, but I just had to go back to that basic, let me just reset myself again. Let me just find my ground zero and get myself back to where I need to be again so that I can move on and I could recognize everything. And, you know, but that has taken years to get me to that place.
Yeah.
I think
lots of falling and getting back
absolutely.
up.
Yeah.
Bandaged
and taking
hands, scraped
responsibility,
knees,
isn't
broken open heads have to tie. You know, it does take a lot of falling to get you to that place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I now, you know, expectations for me, I had to learn, and I'm still, you know, I still have to pull myself back now and again, because you get sucked into them. But I think growing up as the daughter, two brothers, you know, it was like everything was decided for me. I was like the daughter, right, who needed protecting. And then I went into a career where even at a management level, everything's decided for you. You know, you have to behave a certain way. And so it kind of added to I kind of lost myself, if that makes sense. So my recovery has been the more I've got to know myself, the less anxious I've become and accept, you know, me for who I am. It's a bit deep, that, and I'm sorry.
No, I love it. Yes, I
You know,
love
I
it.
think,
Love
God,
the
I'm
deep.
55 and I have to get to the place where I think, yeah. And luckily, I'm there at the moment. So I just think it's not, sometimes it's not as simple. You go to a therapist, you sit in the room and you hope they're going to heal you. They guide you, they support you if they're good. I mean, I wish you guys were around years ago when I first started suffering, because some of the numpties I did sit in a room with made me feel 40 times worse. But I think it's
Yeah,
kind of
same.
like,
Frickin' numpties,
Don't
man.
yeah, you know, textbook city, and it was like, yeah, great. Getting to know yourself, because a lot of the discomfort I found in me was me not being myself and trying to meet expectations.
Yeah. Oh, and if I may, just sort of like
Do it.
dovetail on that, I think part of it too, though, is when you have anxiety, you love the structure and you seek out the structure. The problem is then the structure turns on you. So if you're like, like, it's very containing to be in a circumstance where it's like everyone's telling you what to do and you're just trying to be like a good girl, right? Or a good boy or whatever, good person. And follow all the rules and check the boxes.
But then you lose yourself
But
too.
then you lose yourself and you become so ensconced in trying to do it right that
I found the relationships. I went into relationships when I was struggling, and you know, they were helping me, and well, I thought they were helping, and it was great. But the minute I started getting better and feeling me, you know, I suffered with anxiety, but I'd still be bubbly and, you know, independent, and they didn't like that. And then the whole dynamics of the relationship would end. This is why I'm single with 3 whippets, because
That sounds lovely.
but do you know what I mean? I think for me now, for me to go into a relationship now, and never say never, is it's got to complement my life, not complicate it. And I'm not going into it thinking I need you, because I don't need anyone.
Yes. You are so right. Preach it.
But I've only just got here. Trust me. I even dated someone who wrote a successful anxiety book, and hoping that what a mistake that was. So yeah, it's down to you, and you can do it.
Yeah.
Tell you what, Lisa, take your shoes off and bed yourself into that place for a wee while, because it's a really nice place to be.
Oh, I love it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you know, everyone I meet dog walking, I haven't met one person yet who hasn't said to me they've suffered with anxiety or depression, and that's why they've got a dog, or, you know, they're out in nature. So we're not alone, guys.
No, not by a long shot.
But I think why I've done face that Simply Anxious is because I don't want people to wait till they're in their 50s like I did. I want them to find, you know, the courage to be themselves and to peel away all the nonsense so that they don't have to suffer for as long as I did.
Yeah, to begin to see all all of the scaffolding that we hold on to, all the rules we try to meet as a prison, as opposed to a safe keeping, and to be willing to walk outside, which is terrifying. Don't get me wrong. And then when you walk out and you learn to be with that feeling, that's freedom, right?
Yeah.
That's where that's where things get real. That's what my sort of take on what you're talking about in terms of like, getting your feet really in and snuggled into this experience that you're talking about, Lisa.
Yeah. So, Lauren, just out of curiosity, the question that we sort of had a minute ago from you was neurodivergent to neurotypical, do you think that there is a change in how did you phrase that?
It was
I'm
someone
curious
else.
to understand, because you guys are always noodling things, and I want to see the noodle on
noodle.
Wait, what does that mean?
Your brain noodle.
We're noodling things. That's so good.
Another great word. Thank you.
I love.
I'm gonna start writing these down.
So give us the noodle on it.
I'm still mad that I lost my British accent because
It's really a shame.
All of these it is a shame. It is a shame. I personally don't think that our brains change from neurodivergent to neurotypical. And I don't think that they should. I don't want mine to. I mean, sometimes I do. Don't get me wrong. There are moments that I'm like,
nice
ugh.
trouble. I'm a hit therapist.
You are.
Anyway.
So wait, I don't understand. I'm sorry. What is a hit therapist?
I think it was missing an S.
It was missing an S.
Oh.
For anyone who's listening after the fact, we're talking about, there's a whole scroll of people talking. and anyway, somebody was trying to say something rude. There are all these lovely people saying these amazing things, but of course, when somebody says something rude, and then typo for
they get it wrong.
Can I just for 1 second? I'm sorry, I can't. I have to. I know you guys take the better road. And you're like, oh, let's just ignore these people. That's fine. You're right. We should. But at the same time, they're bullies. And I have a very hard time tolerating the behavior. It's gnarly for me to sit here and do nothing.
That they're actually paid by someone to do it. Wow. So somebody pays them over in India or somewhere. So so it's like
how sad.
Just to sabotage lives from mental health lives. So the person who's doing it is just being paid, I don't know, 20 quid a month just to.
I'm so curious as to why, like what they get out of it. They are blocked. Yes, we block them as they come
But they
in.
just make a whole new handle. And it's, by the way,
because that's what they do as their job. Apparently they've got all these emails set up. So I'm actually angry at Instagram for allowing it to be so easy to set up bogus accounts. And they're thinking about doing Instagram for kids. We're adults and it can hurt. Imagine what it does to kids.
That's what I'm saying is everyone says, let's ignore it. Well, if my child today, if the teacher called and said, everyone's bullying her and she's ignoring them, I would rip their throats out is what I would do.
And I think there's a time and a place for both.
And call that a neurodivergent brain?
That is I wouldn't really, but I would take a stand. And if it was my friend, I would take a stand. So, but I will stop now. I'm done.
The head of Instagram says, hi, ask me anything on a Friday. Every week I do the same thing. When are you going to make it mandatory that people have to verify themselves because of this trolling?
Yeah.
And he never even responds. So and when I do report it, I get messages back that say this has not violated their policies, and I'm thinking, hang on a minute, he called me a scammer. He was commented on one of our guests' sexuality, which is really awful.
It's disgusting, actually.
Well, it's completely inappropriate. Completely. It is disgusting. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, we don't want them to win, right? Like,
sorry, that's my fault.
No. I'm not saying. I just mean like it has a time and a
Kelley,
place.
I started it.
I can't. It's really hard. It's like if we're looking at it, it's like we're pretending like Instagram. It's like, oh, well, let's just ignore it. It's like it's the same shit, and it's happening to kids, and it makes me sick.
Yeah, it's not okay. It's definitely not okay.
We're here to help people.
I think one of the things, because I saw this come up as we were talking about the whole trolls and everything, is the question of neurodivergence versus neurotypical.
Yeah.
And just to finish answering that person's question, I don't think that it's an important thing to move toward neurotypical. I think that actually learning how to navigate the mind that you have is way more important than trying to change your mind into something else, because I don't know, I spent a long time trying to turn my brain into something else, and it yeah, it just wasn't helpful.
But how? I don't think it's possible.
That's why I think why it wasn't helpful is because I was trying to do something that was not possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Indeed. And we spend our lives trying to do that until we get permission to stop.
Yes. Well said.
And this is your permission to stop.
Yeah.
Can I ask you ladies a question then? Would you say you can overcome OCD?
Do you want to finish what you were saying, Emma, and then we can...
There was just an interesting question that came up there that I think we need to address, because it was on the subject of neuroplasticity. And I think, you know, we've maybe left some people hanging on the neurotypical and the neurodivergent, and then where does neuroplasticity fit into all of this? And I think that, I'm trying to go back to it. But I think that's probably a helpful thing for us to sort of just touch on quickly, is that our brains are neuroplastic, which basically means that we can do things that can help us, well, everyone says rewire your brain because it's probably the best way to imagine it in your head. But that doesn't mean that we can, it means that we can influence behaviors and thoughts and things,
change patterns and be
change patterns. Absolutely.
You can unlearn and learn new.
Yeah.
But it doesn't change you as a person, your personality, does it? Or
it doesn't change the structure of our brain, I think, in the way that people are imagining between neurotypical and neurodivergent.
Yeah.
Right. Neuroplasticity just refers to this idea that we can relearn new behaviors, is what it
flexible.
means.
Yeah.
That if you get a very uncomfortable thought or feeling, you can then relearn how you respond to it. Or you can learn that you put your seatbelt on before you start your car. It could be something basic like that.
It's not the point at which you can change from one brain into another. Is kind of what I think we just needed to be clear on. That's not the role of neuroplasticity.
Your noodle is still your noodle.
Your noodle.
So got the same old noodle.
Same.
it's like,
and it's still swimming about in that broth.
It is.
A habit. You can unlearn a habit, they say, within 3 weeks. And I believe that. I unlearned how to stop smoking 12 years ago, and I unlearned lots of things that were no longer serving me. So
I don't know if you can unlearn OCD in 3 weeks though, but you can definitely.
But is OCD a habit then?
No, well,
the response
the response part could be in some ways, I guess, an automatic, because your brain's built to reduce as much calories as possible. Like, it doesn't want to overuse calories. So it goes, if we always do this, then we always do that, because going another way actually calorically burns calories. Mm-hmm. So in that respect, yes. But in the other respect is that we cannot change that we're getting intrusive thoughts, right? We cannot change that, but we can change how we respond to them. And that's how we change the behavior. Right. I forgot what the question was. I'm sorry. My brain.
I think the question was, can you overcome OCD?
Well, in a way, yes, you can overcome the impact that OCD has over your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
So but I think people think of overcome as like, I'm going to move beyond that thing, right? And it's sort of like people within the realm of spirituality thinking that like some sort of enlightenment is going to lead you to move beyond all of the issues that exist here on this planet, when quite the contrary, it's learning how to live with what's going on. Ram Dass likes to say that, or liked to say that, if you think you're enlightened, go spend a weekend with your family, right? So I think same goes. You're not like, overcoming OCD isn't about leaving anything behind in the dirt. It's about learning to be with those things and not letting them be at the helm of the ship.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can live a normal, boring life with OCD, can't you?
I mean, again, with the language, it's really killer. We need to talk more.
That's the thing. It's like, well, normal, boring. What do you want? You know, you can find joy in your life, even if you have a diagnosis of OCD or you have symptoms of OCD, and you learn how to work with that in your noodle.
Yeah, it's probably not going to always be boring in here in the noodle.
Oh no! Oh no!
But it might appear quite boring and normal on the outside
Yeah.
a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We've been asked what our zodiac signs are.
Oh.
Guess.
Oh, go on.
Guess.
I'm Aries.
I'm a
Okay.
Libra.
Okay. My girl over here is a Pisces, right?
Shocking.
Yeah.
I know.
Are you?
Really sensitive.
Yeah. And I'm an Aquarius, so we're all different.
Oh,
Aw.
I think the one on the bottom right is a Capricorn.
who's that?
You know what? The top left is right there as being a Capricorn, though, right?
I'm
Top
not too
right.
far off.
Can I just say the top right on my screen
Yes.
is me?
What? Oh, that's
I'm-
my
I
brain
know.
is broken.
I'm the top right. I'm the
No,
top
I'm
left on my
Lauren.
screen.
Oh,
no.
wow.
Oh,
See,
this
Lauren's
is-
the top left.
That's me too. And you're my top right, Kel.
Oh, shoot. Now we're really noodling our brains here.
Here's a story of a lovely lady.
I think it's good that we get to. I love this talking openly, you know, because it just takes me back to when I used to have to go to the library because there was no internet to kind of understand what was happening to me, and so this kind of conversation always gets me because, you know, I just hope there's one person out there. Well, I hope there's loads, but if it helps just one person, it's so awesome.
Yeah.
It is
You know,
cool.
and the way that we're so open about our own experiences, which I think is powerful. Because I was listening today to a psychologist who's someone in the UK, and she was saying that, you know, I'm a psychologist and people think because I'm a psychologist, my life's perfect. And it so isn't.
No.
I suffer with anxiety. I suffer with, and again, that normalizes it, that, you know, it's how our body reacts to stuff.
Yeah.
And because we're not educated in it, and it's alien to us, or we think of it because the stigma makes us think of it as a sign of weakness or something wrong with you, then we struggle with it. And that is what causes the turmoil within us, and starts that cycle of that's
right. If we're coming from the baseline of pain is part of life, we stop struggling against it. You know, like that, it's not supposed to be perfect.
No.
It was never supposed to be perfect.
And then it comes and goes like happiness does, and giggling does, and feeling a bit randy does. You know, it's true.
And what?
Feeling a bit randy.
You don't walk around 24 hours a day, do you?
Love
Feeling
this.
randy. It comes and goes.
I love
It's
this.
like all emotions, and I think, you know, if we'd have been taught this in school, there's a chance that if you get really stressed, or if you come out of an illness, or if you've had trauma, your body will react like this. And it could be anxiety, your mind will race, you can get obsessive about your thoughts. At least you'd have, you know, we'd have a bit of ammo to think, oh God, yeah, I know what's happening to me, without listening and believing what the brain's saying. But by the time for the first 10 years, I thought I had an illness that I'd have forever, because my doctor said, you'll have it forever. Don't worry, stay on the pills, you'll be fine. So I left that surgery with that mentality, you know, that mindset, oh, this is me now. And it was only when the internet was born that I thought, wow, you can actually recover from this, because I was never told that. So, yeah, let's get educating the kids on this.
Yes, for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, and it's hard because I don't think it's mutually exclusive that you'll always have this and you can recover, right? It's a weird dialectic to hold, but I think in the same way that we've been talking about the fact that our brains are sort of tend towards certain things, and that proclivity may exist, that doesn't necessarily mean that we have to be at the whim of it always.
It was in the 1990s, early 1990s, and it wasn't spoken about. You know, so they said, here's the pills, you've got an anxiety disorder and you'll have it for the rest of your life. And yeah, I think you'll have anxiety for the rest of your life was right, but not the disordered part.
Right, not the part where it's just totally debilitating your life.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So,
do you know, I was eating a bit of, my husband made Christmas cake. He makes it every November, I think. There's a stir up. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's September he starts. Anyway, I don't like it, but I was peckish this afternoon, so I had a slice of this Christmas cake. And Lauren, I thought of you because it was jam-packed with rum or something like that.
The tiramisu.
And I was like, this tastes funny.
And your alcohol, you're teetotal as well.
I know. I feel like I need some of this Christmas cake.
That's hilarious.
So
ship some over. It'll stay nice, I'm sure.
Are you trying to tell us you're sozzled?
What was that, sweetheart?
Are you trying to tell us you're sozzled?
Oh, no.
Okay, you guys are... I need to watch more British TV too, because
like a list of all of the nice words.
I'm writing them down.
I'm really happy about it.
It's all right. We do something weird over here where we tend to put lots of words on tea towels, and then we get them printed up and give them to people as gifts when we come back from holiday.
I love that.
It's a very strange thing we do.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So listen, just because I'm curious, when you realised that there was something not quite okay about your noodle, who did you turn to?
Popcorn Kelley.
Wow. My noodle hasn't been this, right? Like it wasn't just OCD first, right? Like I think it was first recognized, it was trauma. So I think the first thing I did was I turned to rebelling for the first time in my life, because I was always in that box, right? Of like, be the good kid and the golden child. And I was in my 20s and late 20s, and I really rebelled. And then I hit kind of rock bottom, where I wasn't able to go to my work, and I wasn't able to just function at all, like eat. And I think at some point my grandma's like, you're going to go to therapy and I'm going to pay for it. And I will always be grateful for that, because it changed my life. And it's definitely a place of privilege, because therapy is not accessible to everybody and it's not cheap. But that's where I went, is like I had to go down pretty dark paths before I got the help I needed. And then got better, and then I got pregnant, and then OCD hit, with the beautiful mix of panic and trauma coming back. So asking lots of reassurance from friends and family without even really recognizing, hey, this is OCD. And I was already working in the world of OCD. Like just in denial about it. This isn't OCD. This is real. I should be concerned about this. So yeah. That's Lauren, popcorn.
Popcorn Lauren. Hi, Chrissy, by the way. I think my introduction, or where did I turn when my symptoms started?
Yeah.
So I think I, like Kelley, turned a lot of different places. I was 7 when my symptoms first started. And so I first turned to my parents, and my mother had been through therapy herself and was a huge advocate for it. And so she took me to some therapists. Nobody really knew what was going on. But one of the therapists, after many times going, was helpful with the particular theme of anxiety that I had. I had a lot of existential anxiety when I was that age. But I think what happened was my anxiety never went away. Like I was prone, we're talking about, prone to anxiety, and I didn't have tools to navigate it on a larger scale. So then, as a teenager, I turned to drinking and smoking cigarettes. And then I quit those, and then I started restricting and developed anorexia. And then I went back to alcohol. So I started jumping around from thing to thing, really just trying to find the answer. I got sober, had the eating disorder flare up again. Then I got hooked on this particular obsession about having relapsed on a piece of tiramisu. And that's how I found CBT, ERP, and acceptance and commitment therapy and mindfulness. So that's, ultimately, I'm so glad, I'm so grateful that I turned there. And I had a therapist who said, I think you might have OCD. And I had somebody else in my life say, I think you might have OCD. And I'm like, well, this doesn't look like OCD, because I was essentially, most of it was happening in my head or between friends. You know, I was like, do you think I relapsed? Do you think that constitutes a relapse? Everyone in the greater Los Angeles area of AA was asked whether or not they thought that eating a piece of tiramisu constituted a relapse, dependent upon one's intentions. And how could one know one's intentions about eating a piece of tiramisu? It's a fascinating disorder, man.
It's never a dull moment.
Yeah. So
wow, what a journey for you guys.
Yeah, amazing.
I knew pockets of your stories, but I hadn't appreciated the
And I love that you're helping others. It's awesome.
it's such a
That's
gift.
the dream. Yeah, it's really a dream.
Yeah.
Again, a point of privilege is it's really expensive to go to school. I'll be paying debt for the rest of my life.
your life.
Yeah.
But I'll be
I
happy
think
being
that's the
it.
case.
But I find joy in it, and I feel challenged in a good way. And it's part of my recovery. So
Yeah. Well, and the hope is too that by doing things like this, because you're right, Kelley, with the privilege on both fronts, is that we're offering at least education and a sense of community to people who perhaps can't afford treatment. And we're also working on things behind the scenes to try to support treatment being more accessible to people at all levels of income.
Good on
Yes.
that, guys.
So we are going to have to wrap up because I have a child who's home for the day.
Oh,
But it's been so wonderful
I
speaking
could
with
talk
all of
to
you.
all day.
This could go on and on. And I will say this, at the conference, at the IOCDF conferences, back when it was in person, I think some of the best conversations that were had were on panels where there were a bunch of therapists and there were 1 or 2 people who were not therapists who had lived experiences, because you can have a really deep conversation like this there's some therapists who aren't willing, and rightfully so. There's parts of my story I'm not going to share because at the end of the day, I am somebody that someone might hire as their therapist, and I want to have privacy. So it's really cool to see and have, you know, Lisa here, and even though she's not a therapist with the title, right, is that it just opens up a whole new dynamic. So thank you both.
Yes.
For
Thank you.
both
Thank you
of
for
your
having us again.
We'll do
And
it
Emma.
again
Yeah,
this year.
absolutely. And Emma, thank you also for bringing both your wisdom and your gorgeous voice that we're all very, very jealous of.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to speak to you separately about this, but I'll just do it now.
Just go.
But
Let's
it
do
was
it.
to see if we could maybe do a script for some hypnosis for an OCD something.
Oh, wow.
For my YouTube channel. If I write it, maybe you could look over it.
Yeah, sure.
I know nothing about hypnosis.
Me
but
either.
I do. So that's my area. And I can record it and I can do the voicey side of it and everything. But I just want to do something that's really
Helpful. For
very
OCD.
so helpful, much more deep, because a lot of the I write all of my own stuff, and a lot of the ready-made scripts aren't kind of fit for purpose,
Right.
I find. So I was wanting to do something that was a bit
That's awesome.
improved.
Yeah.
Emma's
Emma's handle is the anxiety whisperer with dots in between the words, right?
Yep.
Yeah. I took on a name change.
You're going to post this, though, aren't you, on your...
Yes, so it will be on
So
my
we can share it
Instagram,
across
and then Kelley will put it on her Instagram, and it will be on our YouTube. And of course, the audio will be available across podcast platforms.
Yep.
So thank you so much for joining us, all of you out there, and you too.
And maybe you can do it
welcome.
one day in person. That'd be good.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All
Cheers,
right,
ladies. Bye.
Lots of
Bye.
love.